Okay, we're back at it this morning. I started thinking about what I was hearing when I ran this, and when I was turning it over by hand while I was fixing the starter clutch, is that it seemed like I could only hear hissing out of one cylinder. It's because I just got the spark plugs in loose, and it seemed like the other cylinders really weren't building pressure while I was turning it. And also, all three, only one of the three cylinders was running. I believe I checked the spark on all of them, so that's good. It wasn't the brightest spark I've ever seen, but I think it's functioning. And the other three cylinders were not firing. And I didn't find too many plugged passages in the carbs, so I'm kind of scratching my head as to what's going on here. So I thought I'd pull the cover off, the valve cover. And I didn't have to remove the radiator. I just removed the two top bolts, loosened up my hoses. I drained out my coolant first. And that's got a drain under here, right up there. I think you can see that. So what I'm doing now is checking the valve lash, especially on this cylinder, because I did do a compression test. And like I said, I had 180 in the left rear, 150 in the right rear, and 150 in the left front, and 135 in the right front. So I definitely wanted to see what was going on with this one. Now, I measured the valve lash. I don't see a whole lot of valve wear. I see some marks, but I'm not sure what's going on that guy. I don't know if you can see that. 2 marks on the outer edges of that lobe on both of these. But anyway, what it seems like I'm finding is I cannot get, when I get this positioned for its top dead center on its compression stroke, which is when you're supposed to measure it, both of these cam lobes are sticking outward, like sideways just about. And then I stick a feeler gauge down in there. In between each one of those, there's 2 valves per cylinder. Well, 4 valves, but two sets per cylinder. And I could not get a feeler gauge of the proper size underneath this and the intake, the exhaust valve and the intake. The intake barely fits under the exhaust valve because the exhaust valve is a wider gap than the intake. So it's pretty tight. Now, if I'm trying to run it and the valves aren't closing all the way, then that's losing compression. It may be real close, but it may be letting a lot of compression out. So I'm going to adjust those, but with these darn things, you have to get shims to change. Now, I don't know if this thing is worn. They wear into a tight condition as the valve face burns into the head. But I don't think it should have worn that much for this bike, unless somebody really beat the crap out of it or something. It's got 26,000 miles. That's not that much for a touring bike like this. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they trailered with it, but I have no idea. I'm just trying to figure out why things are the way they are. Maybe somebody had it apart and misadjusted them, and they didn't know. The only thing I could hope about that is if that happened is if it wasn't running and they never had a chance to really run it that way. Maybe they adjusted them and they couldn't get maybe they lost compression and couldn't get it to start or run well, but who knows? I'm just going to try to set it right as best as I know how. And it doesn't help that I looked up the service manual online, the actual Yamaha service manual. If it's in the yellow binding book. It's a digital, but it looks like the official manual, and they've got the wrong firing order in there when you're telling you how to adjust the valves. So that didn't help anything. That was confusing the crap out of me. And then I went to some forums, Venture Rider forums, and found some good information about the misprint and things of that nature. And then everything started making more sense, because I was trying to follow it by the book, and the book was just not explaining something that was pretty basic, wrong information. So, yeah, I'm going to pull the rear cover off. Got to pull this hose off. The radiator hose goes through each one of these. There's a ring. There's a ring through yeah, you can't get it off without that, because the gasket is between there, I think. Or no, wait a minute. I don't know. I might be talking bullshit. Scratch that. But anyway, I'm going to tear into it, set it up as best as I know how, and see if I can get it all to repeat. And if everything looks good when I take this cover off, maybe we'll be in better shape.